December 19, 1941. Near Aricourt, eastern France. The pre-dawn cold cuts like a knife across the open fields. Frost clings to every blade of grass, turning the countryside into a brittle sheet of silver. A low mist hangs over the ground, muffling sound, swallowing silhouettes, and carrying the faint metallic aroma of distant tank exhaust. A pair of German officers stand on the crest of a small rise, breath fogging in the frigid morning air. One of them, Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Strello, a decorated veteran of the Polish and French campaigns, squints through his field glasses. He's studying a strange little vehicle bumping across the frozen pasture below. The machine looks almost comical from a distance, boxy, upright, with an exposed cabin, tiny wheels kicking up sprays of ice. No doors. No armor. Just a squat frame with a canvas top flapping behind it. Strello lowers the glasses, his lip curling in amusement. Ein Spielzeug, he mutters. A toy. Beside him, Major Erhard Becker chuckles. The Americans send their children to war. Below them, the vehicle keeps moving, its engine humming in short, confident bursts as it zigzags between shattered fence posts and abandoned farm carts. A pair of US soldiers ride inside, bundled in heavy coats, rifles slung casually over their shoulders. The little machine seems to glide through the terrain that bogs down heavier units. Strello flicks ash from his cigarette. Ridiculous. It has no armor, no proper clearance, no stability. If this is what they rely on, this war will be short. He turns away, dismissing the vehicle without a second thought. But the Jeep keeps moving. It bounces over a ditch, climbs a muddy slope, then shoots across the crest with surprising speed, like a stubborn terrier refusing to acknowledge its own size. To Becker and Strello, it is an absurd contraption. To the Americans riding inside it, it's something else entirely, a lifeline. The driver, Private Bill Marston of the 4th Armored Division, leans forward, gripping the three-spoke steering wheel with numb fingers. His face is raw from the wind. His boots are soaked from the night's rain. But the Jeep? The Jeep is still going. Feels like the whole damn war's on our back, he mutters. In the passenger seat, Corporal Hildebrand grins through chattering teeth. Better this than walking. The engine growls as the Jeep approaches a tree line. A flash of artillery in the far distance briefly lights the sky behind them. The German counteroffensive is beginning to intensify. The Americans must get their commander's latest reconnaissance notes back to Battalion HQ before the map lines shift again. Marston pushes the accelerator. The Jeep surges forward. Above them, the sun struggles to break through the low clouds. Light pools across the frost, forming a thin glow around the little machine as it races into the wood line. And behind them, on the ridge, the German officers have already forgotten the contraption's existence. But they will remember it soon. They will remember it every day for the rest of the war. Hours earlier, the same Jeep had rolled out from a shelled-out barn near Luneville. The barn, once bright with fresh-cut hay and the sleepy warmth of livestock, now sits half-collapsed, roof beams blown apart by Luftwaffe strafing runs. Snow coats its edges like icing over a broken cake. Inside, American troops had huddled around a lantern, the wind seeping through holes in the planks. Lieutenant Frank Gable, a lean, sharp-eyed officer from Ohio, had been pacing between maps pinned to the wall with bayonets. Each hour brought a new set of questions from Division Command. The Germans were shifting armor from Nancy to Aricourt, probing for weaknesses. Allied lines were thin, stretched by weather and terrain. Gable tapped the map, his gloved finger tracing a rough path. This sector here, north of the ridge. I want eyes on it. No headlights, no stopping, no heroics. He'd glanced at Marston and Hildebrand. You two can handle it. And take the Jeep. He let out a short breath. A half smile. Because you always take the Jeep. Everyone knew why. The Jeep was fast. It was light. It could slide between forest paths that would swallow a half-track and grind a tank to a halt. It could cross a shallow stream that would drown a motorcycle. And it didn't care about the cold. It didn't care about the mud. It didn't care about the weight of 2 tired soldiers and a stack of orders that might change a battlefield. Marston had slapped the hood affectionately as they prepared to leave. Come on, sweetheart. Let's go. The Jeep started on the first crank. That alone felt like a miracle. Now, in the present, as the little machine barrels deeper into the winter woods, the world begins to narrow. The trees close in. Branches slap against the windshield. Mud splashes up in dark streaks against the flat body panels. Hildebrand braces himself. Can't see a damn thing in here. Don't worry, Marston answers. She can. He means it. The Jeep responds to every twitch of the steering wheel like a living thing, skidding slightly, regaining traction, bumping over fallen logs as if shrugging off obstacles. The deeper they go, the closer they get to German forward patrols. And the closer they get to changing how the entire US Army views this odd, lightweight vehicle that no one had believed in before the war. Through the windshield, the mist begins to break. A clearing opens ahead. Marston slows the vehicle, easing it to a crawl. The engine idles softly, the only sound in the still morning. Hildebrand lifts his binoculars. What he sees drains the color from his face. German half-tracks, 3 of them, parked in a meadow, engines cold but weapons manned. A platoon-sized force in camouflaged winter smocks stands at the ready. And behind them, partially concealed by netting, sits something far larger. The outline of armor plates. A long, wicked barrel. A Panzer IV. Hildebrand whispers, Jesus. Marston exhale freezes in the air. Command's gunner want to hear about this. Hildebrand nods, already scribbling notes. We need to get back fast. Marston looks at the Jeep. The Jeep vibrates steadily beneath him. Reliable. Eager. Ready. Then hold on. He throws the Jeep into reverse. The tires spit mud. The engine roars. And as the little vehicle whips around, streaking back through the trees with the agility of a hunted fox, it carries with it something the Germans never expected. The first signal that their enemy's toy car is about to become the most indispensable vehicle on the battlefield. The forest blurs around the Jeep as it tears back toward friendly lines, engine straining, tires slashing through mud and slush. Cold air knifes across Marston's face as he leans forward over the wheel, eyes locked on the narrow path winding through the trees. Branches scrape against the Jeep's hood. Twigs snap beneath the wheels. The whole chassis bucks like a bronco across frozen ruts. Behind him, Hildebrand grips the dashboard with white knuckles and shouts over the roar. Faster, go faster. Marston doesn't answer. He can't. Every muscle in his arms is coiled, fighting the Jeep's violent shuddering as he pushes it harder, past the point any sensible soldier would trust a vehicle this small to survive. But the Jeep holds. It always holds. A sharp crack splits the air. Then another. German rifles. Marston swears and yanks the wheel left as a shot punches through the branches overhead. Splinters rain across the windshield. Hildebrand ducks instinctively, clutching the folded maps against his chest. More shots follow, closer this time. A patrol must have heard the engine. Keep that head down. Marston barks. The Jeep bursts into a small clearing, motor screaming. Snow and dirt spray in its wake. The trail forks. Marston takes the right instinctively, feeling the terrain through the steering wheel, a subtle dip, a slight softening of the ground beneath the tires. Behind them, voices shout in German. Hildebrand risks a glance back. 3 soldiers, rifles raised, break into the clearing. One kneels, steadies his aim. A muzzle flash lights the trees. The round misses by inches, snapping past Hildebrand's shoulder. He jerks back into his seat. Jesus, Marston, they're right on us. Hold on, Marston mutters through clenched teeth. The Jeep hits a fallen log and launches for a moment, suspension groaning, before slamming back to earth and fishtailing wildly. Marston cranks the wheel, wrestling it straight. The little vehicle never should have survived that. A motorcycle would have crashed. A horse would have stumbled. A truck would have split its axle. But the Jeep keeps going. Every bump, every drop, every jarring lurch, its squat frame absorbs it with a kind of stubborn loyalty. Like the damn thing refuses to die. They burst out of the trees and onto open ground. A shallow creek lies ahead, dark water flowing fast from the recent melt. Hildebrand shouts, "No, no, no, we'll drown in that." Marston doesn't slow. He guns the engine. The Jeep slams into the creek with a splash that drenches both men. The water rises halfway up the wheels, the current slapping hard against the frame. For a moment, Hildebrand feels the Jeep float just slightly, like it's losing its grip. Then the tires dig. The engine growls. The Jeep climbs the opposite bank in a spray of mud and pulls itself free. Marston exhales a long, shaky breath. "See? Told you. She can." Hildebrand wipes water from his eyes, equal parts terrified and relieved. "I swear, this thing is going to kill me long before the Germans do." They push on. Behind them, German voices grow fainter, lost in the trees. Ahead, the eastern sky begins to lighten. Dawn's first pale streaks stretch across the horizon. Smoke from distant artillery drifts over the ridgeline in slow ribbons. The air smells of wet dirt and cordite. And somewhere beyond that, somewhere past the frozen fields and railroad lines, lies the command post. Marston presses the accelerator to the floor. Almost there. But the story of this Jeep doesn't begin here. It begins long before the mud of Aracourt, long before the winter wind whipped through its open cabin, long before German officers dismissed it as a toy car unworthy of battlefield respect. It begins in a cramped workshop in Butler, Pennsylvania. July 1940. Bantam Car Company headquarters. The room smells of hot metal, fresh paint, and desperation. American Chief Engineer Karl Probst wipes sweat from his brow as he studies a set of blueprints spread across a steel table. His round glasses have slipped down the bridge of his nose again. He doesn't bother pushing them back up. He's too focused on the curves, angles, and measurements of the lightweight reconnaissance vehicle sketched beneath his fingertips. A colonel from the Ordnance Technical Committee leans over his shoulder, tapping one corner of the design. This weight requirement is non-negotiable. Quarter-ton payload. Four-wheel drive. And we want it built in 49 days. Probst looks up at him, incredulous. 49? You want a whole new type of vehicle in, what, 7 weeks? The colonel folds his arms. If you want the contract, that's the deadline. In truth, the Army doesn't believe Bantam can do it. Bantam is a small manufacturer. Tiny, compared to Ford or Willis. Half the generals expect the proposal to fail. Some actively want it to fail, so they can hand the project to a larger company with political backing. But Probst doesn't argue. He just straightens his glasses, sets his jaw, and begins writing. The pencil scratches across the paper. Fast. Precise. Intentional. He works through the day. Through the night. Through the next day. His team brings him coffee, cold sandwiches, and sometimes a blanket when he forgets what temperature is. Engineers rotate in and out, offering feedback, measuring parts, adjusting angles. Every hour matters. Every pound shaved off the weight is a victory. Every inch of clearance is an argument for survival. When the prototype finally rolls into the Army's test course at Camp Holabird, Maryland, it looks like nothing the officers expected. It isn't pretty. It isn't polished. It isn't even entirely finished. But the little box-shaped vehicle, barely the size of a pasture wagon, starts on the first attempt. The engine growls. The front wheels bite into the dirt. And the Jeep moves. One colonel mutters, "It looks like it's held together with hope and tin." Another officer snorts. "It'll fall apart before lunch." But the Jeep doesn't fall apart. It climbs hills. It fords water. It crosses trenches. It hits speeds that make the test drivers cackle with shocked disbelief. By noon, the tone changes. By sundown, the Army is taking notes. By the end of the trials, the skepticism begins to crack, and the officers can't deny what they're seeing. The damn thing works. The damn thing might actually change battlefield mobility in ways they haven't yet imagined. And somewhere far across the ocean, though he doesn't know it yet, Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Strello, the German officer who mocked the Jeep as a child's toy, is about to learn how wrong he was. Because while Marston and Hildebrand race through frozen French fields just to stay alive, the little machine beneath them is carrying more than 2 exhausted soldiers. It's carrying the weight of a revolution. A revolution the Axis never saw coming. The Jeep roars across the last ridge before friendly lines, engine coughing as it fights the incline. Marston hunches over the wheel, urging it upward, boots braced against the metal floor. The cold stings his eyes. The wind claws at his jacket. His fingers ache against the steering wheel's thin rim. Behind him, Hildebrand holds the map packet tight to his chest, soaked, bent, and worth more in this moment than any weapon they carry. A gust of icy wind slams into them as they crest the ridge. Below, smeared across the valley floor, lies the American Field Command Post, half hidden by camouflaged netting and churned-up mud. Trucks are jammed into narrow lanes, idling. Radio antennas sway in the wind. Uniformed dispatchers dart between tents, arms full of paperwork. The distant thump of artillery skitters across the hills. Marston lets out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Home? Home enough, Hildebrand mutters. The jeep rattles down the slope, suspension squeaking in protest. As they approach the entrance, a military policeman swings his rifle up, not in threat, but in habit. His eyes narrow at the two mud-drenched soldiers barreling toward him at impossible speed. Marston slows at the last second, tires skidding to a halt in a spray of slush. The MP recognizes them and waves them through. Lieutenant Gable's been pacing holes in the ground. Get your asses in there. Marston kills the engine. The sudden silence is deafening. Both men sit for a second, limbs shaking, hearts still racing from the chase, the shots, the freezing water. Then Hildebrand exhales sharply. That, he says, was the worst drive of my life. Marston pats the dashboard. But she made it. He climbs out stiffly, boots squelching, and Hildebrand follows. The jeep crackles as the engine cools, steam rising from its hood where ice water still clings. As they move toward the briefing tent, officers glance curiously at the battered little vehicle, its tires caked with frozen mud, its windshield streaked with branch scratches. Someone whistles to. Hell did you two take that thing through? Marston doesn't answer. The jeep answers for him, its mere presence a statement about where it's been and what it has survived. Inside the main tent, Lieutenant Frank Gable looks up sharply as Marston and Hildebrand burst in. His face shifts from irritation to relief in an instant. You're late, he snaps. Then, seeing their condition, he softens. But you made it. Hildebrand hands him the damp reconnaissance notes. Sir, you're going to want to sit down. Gable doesn't sit. He spreads the papers over a crate and bends over them with narrow, focused eyes. The tent is dim, lit by a lantern that casts a soft amber glow across the map. Outside, the wind howls against the canvas. After a minute, he lets out a low whistle. Panzer IVs, dug in infantry, half-tracks? That's a full push. They're prepping something big. Yes, sir, Hildebrand says grimly. And they have range on the railway. Gable turns, snapping at a radio operator. Get division on the line. Now. As the operator scrambles, Gable looks back at Marston. You two did good work. You probably bought us hours we wouldn't have had. Marston shrugs modestly. We just drove, sir. Gable cracks a rare smile. I didn't say you did it pretty. Hildebrand deadpans. Sir, we almost died. Several times. Welcome to reconnaissance, Gable replies, returning to the map. But the lieutenant's next words are quiet, spoken more to himself than to the others. And thank God for that little jeep. Later that night, as the camp hums with activity, Marston sits next to the jeep under a tarpaulin, tightening a loose bolt on the front axle. The lantern beside him flickers. Snow begins to drift again, carried by the wind into swirling, ghost-like sheets. He hears boots crunch behind him. Lieutenant Gable steps into the light. Thought you'd be sleeping. Marston wipes grease from his hands. Couldn't. She took a beating today. Gable nods. He places a hand on the jeep's hood, as if acknowledging the machine itself. You know, he says, before the war, half the army brass thought these things were a joke. A gimmick. Marston snorts. Bet they're not laughing now. They will be, Gable says. Until this thing outruns a panzer. Marston looks up sharply. Sir, outrunning a panzer isn't exactly. Gable smiles faintly. You'd be surprised. For a moment, both men stand silent beside the jeep, listening to the wind sweep across the valley. Gable eventually steps back. Get some rest, Private. Tomorrow's going to be worse. As he leaves, Marston pats the hood one more time. Do your best, old girl, he whispers. We're going to need it. The jeep doesn't respond. It just sits there, silent, unassuming, almost meek. But the truth, known by the men who ride in it, and soon to be known by every German division from France to Tunisia, is this: there is nothing meek about the Jeep. Across the continent, in a headquarters lit by harsh electric lamps and cigarette smoke, Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Strello studies a set of captured intelligence photos. Officers stand around him, murmuring. A single image lies on the table: a US Jeep bouncing over rough terrain, soldiers inside, dust trailing behind them. Strello frowns. He taps the photo with one finger. Again this vehicle, he mutters. Always appearing where it should not. A major clears his throat. Reports say these American scouts move very quickly. Faster than expected. Strello scoffs. It is still a toy. How do they say it? Go-kart. But he doesn't sound convinced. The room falls quiet. Because even they, proud armored officers of the Wehrmacht, are beginning to understand something they cannot quite admit aloud. The Americans are moving too fast. Too fluidly. Too unpredictably. And at the heart of that mobility lies the same unarmored, ridiculous little contraption they mocked months earlier. A vehicle that refuses, absolutely refuses, to stay in its lane as a toy. A vehicle already reshaping the battlefield. And soon, brutally soon, it will reshape more. Much more. A heavy fog blankets the valley. Twigs snap underfoot. The scent of damp pine hangs in the air, sharp and persistent. The small American convoy moves slowly along the winding path. Jeeps, quarter-ton trucks, and a few half-tracks, their engines humming in rhythm. The little jeeps dart between the heavier vehicles like swallows around lampposts, each one carrying dispatches, reconnaissance parties, or lightly armed scouts. Sergeant Michael Donovan leans out of his jeep's cabin, peering through the fog. His breath comes in visible clouds. Snowflakes land on his coat, melting almost instantly. He grins despite the cold. "Tell me again why anyone laughed at us," he mutters to Private Jenkins riding shotgun. Jenkins snorts, shoving a map back into his jacket pocket. "Because they didn't know what they were missing." Donovan nods. "Yeah. Well, those fools are about to be eating their words." The convoy moves as a single, fluid organism. The jeeps guide the heavier vehicles over rough patches, across frozen streams, and around fallen trees. They tow light artillery pieces when needed, ferry wounded soldiers back from the front, and deliver vital orders from command. In this fog, the little machines are indispensable, the veins of the army's body. Across the field, German patrols watch in disbelief. Oberstleutnant Strello crouches behind a rock outcropping with binoculars, eyes narrowing. He counts the vehicles, a dozen small jeeps, a few larger trucks, a half-track at the rear. They appear to move without hesitation, weaving seamlessly between obstacles. Not one vehicle is lost, stuck, or slowed. He exhales slowly. Unmöglich. Impossible, he mutters under his breath. The men around him are quiet, uneasy. Even seasoned veterans can see the pattern forming. The Americans, one whispers, they're everywhere at once, like the jeep is carrying the entire army on its back. Strello grits his teeth. His pride and training tell him to dismiss it, yet every patrol report, every reconnaissance photo, and now, every inch of the Ardennes terrain screams otherwise. Meanwhile, back with the Americans, the jeep crews are beginning to see their own machine in a new light. Lieutenant Frank Gable rides shotgun on a scouting mission, wind tearing at the canvas top of the jeep. The driver, Corporal Hildebrand, presses the accelerator lightly, maneuvering through a narrow gap between trees. Gable watches him, noting the jeep's ability to shift, dodge, and respond. "This little thing," he mutters aloud, "she could save a division." Hildebrand glances over. "A division? Sir, she's barely got armor for two." "Armor's overrated," Gable replies, eyes locked on a German forward observation post appearing through the mist. "Speed, mobility, adaptability, that's what wins battles now. You'll see." The jeep swerves suddenly, avoiding a concealed trench, and the lieutenant can't help but grin. Even soaked, muddy, and exhausted, he knows this vehicle embodies something entirely new in warfare: unpredictability and reliability fused into one. Across multiple theaters of operation, this becomes evident. In North Africa, jeeps carry command staff across shifting desert dunes, evading Axis reconnaissance and delivering rapid orders to frontline units. In the Pacific, they traverse muddy jungle tracks on New Guinea, ferrying supplies where no truck can survive. Each jeep operates as a self-contained army agent, capable of scouting, towing, delivering messages, and transporting personnel across terrain that would stall conventional vehicles. Generals begin to notice. Commanders of armored divisions watch as small convoys, led by jeeps, outmaneuver heavier mechanized units. Supply lines are maintained with unprecedented flexibility. Reconnaissance is faster, more precise. Communications, once delayed by distance or obstacles, are now near instantaneous thanks to these small vehicles darting between posts. For the first time in history, a single vehicle type, light, unarmored, and dismissed as a joke, becomes indispensable across every Allied theater. It is the backbone of mobility, the silent enabler of operational flexibility, and the thing German officers have learned to fear without fully understanding why. Strello writes in his field diary that night. By lantern light, he scribbles the words with a trembling hand. The Americans' little vehicle, this Jeep, is everywhere. It moves faster than our expectations, appears where we are unprepared, and disappears before we can engage. It is no toy. It is a weapon. He pauses, staring at the ink. The realization cuts him to the core. His early dismissal of the Jeep was catastrophic. Its presence reshapes tactical possibilities. He can see the consequences already: delayed counterattacks, missed targets, and increasingly daring American maneuvers. A colleague leans over, noting his grim expression. "Are you sure you're not overreacting?" Strello shakes his head. "No. I have underestimated it. We all have." The Jeep, small and unassuming, has begun its campaign of silent dominance. Meanwhile, in the campfires and muddy bivouacs of the Allied soldiers, the Jeep earns almost mythical status. Soldiers tell tales of impossible escapes, daring scouting runs, and convoys saved by a sudden swerve or the unshakable persistence of a single engine. Its reliability becomes a shared legend. If the Jeep can't get us out, nothing can. It's like it knows the way. I've seen one pull 2 wounded men and a 37mm cannon through mud that swallowed trucks. What was once a laughingstock, mocked in officers' mess halls as a toy, becomes a symbol of ingenuity, adaptability, and survival. The Allies, unknowingly, have discovered something profound. Victory often favors the mobile, the flexible, the underestimated, and in the muddy fields and snowy ridges of Europe, that victory rides on 4 small, spinning wheels. March 3, 1943. Southern Tunisia. The sun glares off the desert sands, bright enough to sear the eyes through goggles. Dust hangs in the air, coating uniforms and skin in fine grit. The heat is relentless, but the little jeeps seem unaffected. Their engines hum with determination, skimming over dunes that swallow larger trucks. They weave between rocks and craters, carrying officers, radio equipment, and light artillery pieces to forward positions in record time. Sergeant Michael Donovan watches a jeep tow a 75mm pack howitzer across a gully. The heavier trucks had failed. The jeep, small and scrappy, made it look effortless. "Unbelievable," Donovan mutters, wiping sweat and dust from his forehead. "They laughed at this thing. Look at it now." Private Jenkins, perched in the passenger seat of a nearby jeep, grins. "Laughing's for losers, Sergeant. This is genius." The American troops are learning what their predecessors in Pennsylvania knew only in prototypes: speed, flexibility, and durability matter more than armor in many tactical situations. A vehicle that can carry messages, tow guns, and escape enemy fire without hesitation isn't just transportation, it's a force multiplier. Meanwhile, German intelligence reports stream in. Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Strello is no longer laughing. He pores over reconnaissance maps, photographs, and captured dispatches. Every report mentions the same phenomenon: small, fast, and relentless vehicles appearing in unexpected places. They are nimble, unpredictable, and almost impossible to target. The same jeeps that were once called toys now dominate the battlefield in his mind. Strello pinches the bridge of his nose. "Die is verdammten Autos," he mutters. These damned cars. The words taste bitter. He remembers mocking the Jeep months earlier in the frost-covered fields of France. Now, those same vehicles shape the outcome of entire engagements. Where German commanders once saw only a flimsy machine, they now see opportunity lost, time wasted, and men endangered. He scribbles another note in his diary: they move faster than our recon, strike further than expected, and vanish before we can respond. The Americans have weaponized mobility. This Jeep, it is no toy. Back in the field, Allied officers witness a growing dependence on the little vehicles. Lieutenant Frank Gable rides with his Jeep convoy, eyes scanning for German positions. Each stop requires precision, artillery placement, troop movements, intelligence relay. Time is critical. Any delay can cost lives. One Jeep pulls up to deliver intelligence from a reconnaissance team. The driver, drenched in sweat and dust, jumps out and hands a map to Gable. Enemy movement along the ridge, he says. They've fortified positions, but our scout spotted gaps near the left flank. Gable glances at the report and nods sharply. Good work. You did it fast. That Jeep of yours made all the difference. The driver smiles, almost sheepishly. Yes, sir. Gable watches him climb back into the small vehicle and drive off. In a matter of seconds, that single Jeep has transformed raw information into actionable strategy. And that is the essence of its power, a simple, adaptable vehicle doing the work of a dozen soldiers and half a dozen larger trucks. Across the Mediterranean theater, the legend of the Jeep grows. In North Africa, Italian and German soldiers alike whisper about the little American car that moves like a ghost. They report small units disappearing into terrain that seemed impassable. Recon patrols vanish and reappear miles away, delivering reports with almost supernatural speed. Heavy vehicles bog down in sand or mud, but the Jeep slides over obstacles, fords rivers, and escapes artillery fire with astonishing agility. Even the British, allies of the Americans, begin to recognize the Jeep as more than a novelty. At forward headquarters, officers jot down recommendations: deploy the Jeep in reconnaissance units, assign them to artillery liaison, use them to evacuate wounded quickly. The consensus is unanimous: it is indispensable. By mid-1943, a transformation is complete. Where once German generals mocked, now they fear. Where once Allied soldiers doubted, now they rely. The Jeep moves not only men and weapons but morale. It symbolizes ingenuity, adaptability, and the triumph of practical engineering over brute force. Marston, Hildebrand, and Gable sit around a small fire in Tunisia one evening, sharing rations and stories. The day's operations are done, yet conversation naturally drifts back to their trusty vehicles. You know, Gable says, tossing a crust of bread to a dog resting nearby, they called it a toy at first. Marston laughs, shaking his head. Toy? That little box has saved more men than I can count. Hildebrand leans back, staring at the stars. They'll never forgive themselves for underestimating it. No, Gable agrees. And we'll keep using it to remind them. The fire crackles. The desert wind whistles past. And the Jeeps, lined up nearby, engines cooling, metal glinting faintly in the moonlight, sit quietly, unassuming, yet potent. The soldiers know what the enemy does not fully comprehend. These vehicles are more than tools. They are instruments of mobility, precision, and survival. In the hands of men who understand them, these small machines are unstoppable. And in the minds of those who mock them, the memory of ridicule is quickly replaced by fear. Dawn breaks over the coast with muted light, the sea reflecting silver-grey clouds. Smoke drifts upward from scattered artillery positions. Explosions echo from the beaches, muffled by distance but carrying an unmistakable thunder. The air tastes of salt, gunpowder, and the relentless anxiety of men waiting for the next order. Among the chaos, Jeeps move like swarming insects across the beachhead. Soldiers leap from landing craft, rifles in hand, as the little vehicles dart through sand and obstacles, towing light artillery, carrying medics, and ferrying officers with vital instructions. Every vehicle seems impossibly fast, navigating terrain that bogs down half-tracks and trucks. Mud, craters, barbed wire, even water cannot stop them. Private Bill Marston drives one of the Jeeps, gripping the wheel as his tires slip in sand and shell-shattered sod. Corporal Hildebrand rides shotgun, map case in hand, scanning the horizon. Smoke and dust cloud their vision, but the Jeep plows on, bouncing over debris with the grace of a determined animal. Each turn, each lurch, every burst of speed carries men closer to safety, orders closer to execution, and the Allied plan closer to success. "This little thing again," Hildebrand mutters, breath visible in the cool morning air. "Wouldn't trade her for a tank," Marston replies. The Jeep's engine growls, answering like it understands. Meanwhile, German commanders watch helplessly. Oberstleutnant Karl-Heinz Strello, now seasoned and wary, peers through binoculars from a hedgerow. The same toy he had once dismissed is everywhere, dodging artillery fire, racing ahead of infantry, delivering messages faster than German runners, and pulling men out of danger. He scribbles in his notebook, ink smudged with frustration. This vehicle, it defines mobility. It is not armor, it is not speed alone. It is adaptability, courage, and persistence. A tool that thinks faster than men can react. Around him, officers shift uncomfortably. Each report confirms what they have been reluctant to admit for years: the Jeep is more than a vehicle. It is the backbone of Allied mobility, the silent architect of operational advantage, the instrument that reshapes strategy by simply existing. Behind the front lines, Allied generals nod knowingly. Maps are pinned, markers placed, and orders relayed, all with the aid of these little vehicles. The Jeep has transformed from a prototype in Pennsylvania into an indispensable force multiplier across every theater of war. Commanders who once doubted its worth now base critical decisions on its capabilities. Reconnaissance, rapid troop movement, artillery coordination, medical evacuation, all made possible by this compact, unassuming machine. Lieutenant Frank Gable watches a convoy of Jeeps speed past, each one carrying vital cargo, personnel, and intelligence. He leans against a tent pole, thinking back to that first snowy morning near Aracourt, when the German officers laughed. How far they had come. How far the vehicle had carried them. How pivotal it had become. Marston and Hildebrand arrive, dust-covered, grinning despite fatigue. Gable nods. "Not a toy anymore," he says quietly. Marston slaps the hood. "Not even close." Hildebrand adds, "She's the war's workhorse. Always has been." Across continents, from deserts to jungles, from forests to beaches, the Jeep proves itself again and again. Where larger, heavier vehicles stall or sink, the Jeep glides. Where communications falter, it delivers messages and men. Where speed is vital, it carries command officers to points of decision. And in every instance, soldiers, whether Allied or Axis, take note: what was mocked has become essential. In Germany, Strello closes his notebook. He does not smile. He cannot. The vehicle he once ridiculed has turned every battle he planned into a reactive struggle. He writes one final note. Underestimation has consequences. The Jeep teaches that lesson more effectively than men. And so it is that a vehicle born of necessity, simplicity, and ingenuity shapes the course of war. From the muddy fields of France, through the deserts of North Africa, into the dense jungles of the Pacific, and onto the beaches of Normandy, the Jeep moves tirelessly. It carries men, equipment, and hope. It crosses obstacles, escapes danger, and delivers victory in ways its creators could scarcely have imagined. It is fast. It is nimble. It is relentless. It is unassuming, yet it commands respect on every battlefield it touches. What began as a toy car, mocked by the enemy, has become the engine of mobility that no army could ignore. As soldiers climb into their Jeeps and roar into another day of combat, one truth is undeniable. The Jeep does not follow the battle. It shapes it. And in shaping it, it earns its place, not as a mere vehicle, but as the backbone of the Allied war effort.